Hey guys, what's up? Coach Carroll. Welcome to another episode of the Sales Factory. Today I got my man Marc with me. He is an insurance agent from the farm, and he was in one of the groups that I'm a member of. You guys know that we work with a lot of state farm agents, and he was posting about how he was completely remote, and I was like, hey man, that's kind of interesting to me, right? Because that's what everyone's kind of going to right now. We sensed it coming in the pandemic. Luckily, I've been doing Zoom calls, and back when it was even Cisco WebEx, I'll use them back in like 2016. So I've been doing this for a while. So when the pandemic hit, it wasn't really a big change for us, but I know that it really dislodged and upset a lot of businesses. So I figured, heck, let's have Marc come on and give us a little insight. So Marc, thanks so much for being on the Sales Factory podcast, man.
Hey, love being here, Coach. Appreciate it.
Yeah, absolutely, man. So before we dive right into the meats and the potatoes, as my mom would call it, let's talk about a little bit about your background. Kind of give us a little, a little back insight to like where are you at in your business career? Obviously, you're a state farm agent, but like, what's that look like? Where are you at, and what kind of made you get to this point of pulling the trigger on being fully remote? And then we'll get into a little more about what is it actually like and how'd you pull it off?
Yeah, sure. Great. So I'm in my 22nd year of agency.
Congrats, man.
Yeah, right. Just turned 50 in January. So it just seems like a blink yesterday.
You look good, man. You look good.
I appreciate it. Yeah. A lot of vitamins. Every moderation. So I came into State Farm back in 1996 as a claim rep. And just a little bit of background on how I got there. I'm a State Farm brat. So basically my dad's a State Farm agent. So I grew up in the company. So when people say, how long have you been with the company? I'm like, well, since 1972, because I was literally just born into it. But growing up, I had a lot of admiration for my dad and what he did. But I just had a different calling early on. I just felt I wanted to go into law enforcement and kind of maybe even go that route and have a career there. Graduated from the Citadel back in 1994, same alma mater my father graduated from. So, just like following this guy's footsteps, and then got a stint with the police department in Mount Pleasant, South Carolina for a couple of years, sworn in as a 21-year-old officer. And then I started to realize that, the neighborhoods I was driving around in, I probably couldn't afford to live in at some point. So I was really kind of like looking for a change. I wanted to get married, have a family, and be able to afford that. So the 2.5 years I was with the department, I think really actually it was probably one of the best things I ever could have done, because it really, really helps me with what I do and how I approach my agency. I feel almost like a first responder in a way of putting out fires. And literally, I'm usually the second person that they're going to call after they've had a fire or something's happened with car, something like that.
Went from first responder to second responder.
Pretty much. Yeah, pretty much. So I started my agency in Maryland, had never even set foot there. I moved around a little bit. I was working in claims in Charleston, South Carolina. Okay. And I got an opportunity to open up a new agency in just outside of Annapolis, Maryland.
So you were a scratch agent?
I wasn't scratch, but I was a scratch location. So
gotcha. Okay.
New phone number. They spliced together about 700 households for me to basically start working that book.
Just enough to keep the lights on.
Pretty much. Well, yeah, there were sometimes we used candles, of course. But yeah, the nice thing about that, I always promised I would never miss payroll ever. I might miss my own bills or whatever, and we've all been there. Yeah. But my employees were always the most important asset to my business. So never miss payroll even when the days were hard. So
are you still located in Maryland now?
Yeah, still in Edgewater, Maryland. Actually, this is I just moved my office for my third time, and that's part of why this virtual situation. Overhead for office space is ridiculous, right? So I hit about that 15-year mark where I really just started to not really be engaged, if you will, in my office. And I was kind of letting the employees, the team members kind of run me. We had, I had written policies and, rules, if you will. And I just wasn't holding them accountable. And they were kind of like, hey, I'm going to be late today. And I'd be like, all right. Cause I just kind of hit that, I was tired. You just gotta get tired.
I get it. I've been there myself. So yes,
Yeah.
and people that are listening, if you're one of the new entrepreneurs that follow the podcast, you're probably like, what the hell is he talking about? I'm on fire right now. You will hit this point in time that, it's somewhere after your first decade and before you get to your second decade that you just kind of hit this lull, this little, I don't want to call it a slump, but it's just like, it's almost like burnout. You're just kind of like, you're going through the motions. Am I right on that, Mark?
That's exactly right. Yeah. I mean, you call it a slump, a burnout. Sometimes you even question why you're even doing what you're doing. It's just, I called it, I was like in the mouse wheel. Hey, I got to go to the mouse wheel today. Jump back in that mouse wheel every day. Cause it's, the situations are the same, but the names just change of who's in the situation. So, so I went out and I started, I got an opportunity to coach, one of the high school teams as an assistant coach here at the varsity level. I played high school ball up in New Jersey and played my first year at the Citadel as a walk-on. So I had a lot of baseball experience and just loved the sport. So I got on with them. And first 2 years on the staff, we won back-to-back state championships, which has only been done 3 times in the state of Maryland. So I had a great experience like coaching kids. And then I moved on to coaching my daughter's swim team in high school. And their coach quit about 2 weeks before the season, and they couldn't find a coach, but I was already qualified, like as far as certified. I didn't know anything about swimming. My daughter was like, hey, Dad, look, I'll go ahead and write all the practices and everything. And you can work the lineup and bring the music and give all your rah speeches. And my first season coaching girls and boys high school swimming, we went like 37-0.
Wow.
So, right. Crazy. Right. So I kind of ran this team like Moneyball. It's all about times and stuff. And that's kind of how I kind of put my lineups together. But I started like really reflecting. I'm like, how can I be so successful having championship high school teams and I can't have a championship agency? Like, what am I missing here?
Yeah.
So yeah, that's when I could tell you kind of like how the wake up call went, but that's kind of what I started thinking. I'm driving home, I'm like, yeah, we're winning. I'm like, why isn't my team winning? Like, what's going on? So
what was it? What did you find out? What was the reason behind that?
Well, I didn't want to admit it, but it turned out it was me. I was the problem.
The buck always stops with the entrepreneur.
Yeah. So I forget exactly what the date was that it happened, but I was home on a weekend. I don't know if it was snowing or it was just bad weather out, and I was stuck at home and I couldn't get out and do like some of the things I like to do. And I've told this story to some so a lot of people in my colleagues, at the farm and such. I watched like 13 or 14 straight episodes of Bar Rescue. Okay.
Well, John Taffer.
And I started to realize, like, I was like, what if he was like observing my office and then came in to intervene? Like, what would he see? Like, but I realized the problem wasn't the employees. It was me. As the leader, I was not leading to the potential that I knew I had. I just kind of, like I said, hit that plateau. So then I was like, you know what? I need to make a change. And then about a week after that, I went to one of those back, when we were actually having meetings. I went to one of those state farm pep rallies. It was great. A lot of motivation. One of the guest speakers spoke about totally correlated running your team like a sports team. Like, you're the manager of this team, and like all that started to like click for him. So I'm like, all right, how am I going to do this? And is the team that's with me even capable of changing the way they've been acting to go down this path? Now,
I'll tell you, Mark, if the people that are listening right now, if they've never had to have that epiphany yet, when that comes, like, I went through this a couple of years ago, like when we reinstituted our core values and our mission statement and like kind of rewrote what company culture was going to be in our business. it's tough, man, because that's when you got to kind of take a hard look at your team and say, those couple over there are the weak links, or those couple right there, they're not going to fit. They're not going to go along on this journey with us. And I'm not trying to ruin the story, but I got a feeling that's where we're headed to, man, because that's a tough spot for a leader in a business when you have to make those tough calls. But unfortunately, everybody wants to see the good side of entrepreneurship. And I talk about that a lot on this podcast. It's like, it's not all rainbows and butterflies. There's the bad side of it that comes along. The responsibilities is probably the best way to put it, that you have to uphold and take on to grow that team to that next level. So talk to us a little bit about that. Like, once you had that aha moment of like,
yeah, it was,
you had to take inventory of your team, basically, right?
Yeah, basically on the drive back to my office, I just, was really just trying to think, are they going to be able to do it? And the conclusion I came to was there's no way the 3 people that are on my team right now are ever going to do it. And even if I try, I know it's going to be a waste of time and money. So why would I keep throwing money at this thing, knowing that they're not going to be part of this? So, it's almost like taking all your high paid free agents on your baseball team and getting rid of them, and kind of like a money ball thing. Just go into cut the high paid people. Let's find a whole new team. And now, 18, this is about 18 years now, that 15-year mark, 15 through 18 years. And then this is the 18th year. I'm like, all right, I got 18 years of experience doing this now. I don't think I would have done this in the first 2 or 3 years, but I kind of jokingly say I kind of just fired everybody when I got back to the office immediately and just said, hey, you're all gone. But it was over 3 days, basically. It was pretty immediate. One decided that she didn't want to be there anymore. One said that she was taking the job with another commercial broker. And then the one I said, well, everyone's going, so I'm just going to let you go too. So basically, all within 3 days, I had no employees, period.
Clean house. Wow, totally. Man. Wow.
And then
did you have this moment of clarity? Obviously it's like, oh my gosh, I just fired everybody. But I just know from my experience, there was this moment of clarity for me. Did you have that as well? Where you kind of could take that deep breath and it almost was like all the pressure's off, right?
Yeah, it absolutely was. You go, oh my God, I just can't believe I fired everybody. And then within 30 minutes, you're like, all right, this this
I can breathe. I can
totally breathe.
Right?
Yeah.
Wow, man.
I'm in charge of the whole ship.
That's some powerful stuff, dude, that you had to make that decision to make that tough call. But I have a quote that I say all the time is in order to clean out your closet, your room has to get dirty. And if you're going to clean your closet out, you got to pull everything out and your room's going to get messy in the short term. And that's pretty amazing. I want to take a quick second. Let's take a break and hear from one of our sponsors, and then we'll be right back with Marc, and we'll figure out how he turned this thing around and rebuilt his team. Don't go anywhere. Here's a quick note from one of our sponsors.
Hey, quick little interruption in the middle of the podcast here. Just wanted to remind you, if you haven't got your copy of Phenomenal Phone Calls, you can get it at phenomenalphonecalls.com. You can get it with the link from coachcarroll.com, or it's available on Amazon and Audible. But phenomenalphonecalls.com, you can also get the audio version over there. So just wanted to put that in your ear. If you haven't got the free book, it's free. You just pay shipping and handling. Go to phenomenalphonecalls.com. Get that book so that you can get your team on the phones. You can get on the phones. Cold calling is the highest ROI form of marketing or advertising you can do. You literally can call straight to the decision maker, get a decision, yes or no. That way you're not wasting a ton of advertising dollars, wasting a ton of time prospecting. It is one of the best. It's still the top 3 biggest projects we've ever done at my power washing window cleaning company have come from cold calling. A lot of our clients in the ad tech world have come from cold calling. I love it. It's why I wrote the book. Go check it out, phenomenalphonecalls.com. Back to the podcast.
Hey, what's up, guys? It's Coach Carroll. Welcome back. If you guys are just now tuning in, Marc was telling us how he's went through this journey over 15 to 18 years of being an entrepreneur and a State Farm agent. And he had just shared with us that he had come to this apex point where he fired his entire team. The kind of the oh my gosh, I can't believe I'm doing this, but he did it anyway. Oftentimes leaders have to make those tough decisions that also probably aren't very popular with your team, especially when you're firing everybody. But Marc had gotten through that. And so Marc, now you're sitting here in the office, you maybe are having I'm a Kentucky guy, so I'd be having me a bourbon, right? It's like, so we're sitting here with you and we're thinking like, okay, now what's your next move? What happens after, you realize, okay, I've cleared out the closet. Now it's time to rebuild the organization. What'd you do first?
Well, first thing I did was try and figure out what avenue of recruitment I wanted to go through. And at that time, a lot of people were just, I used Indeed. All right. Indeed I've used a couple of the other ones before, but I asked some of the people in certain age groups, if you will, that 18 to 35-year-old group, just, and randomly speaking to people like, hey, if you were looking for a job, what avenue would you be seeking? Yeah. And most of them were telling me, yeah, we use Indeed, or I use Indeed.
Indeed's a great company, man. We've used them for recruiting as well.
It's like, I'll give it a shot, So the one thing I did in my job listing, and I've told some other agents to do this, I think a lot of agents miss some really quality, quote unquote, salespeople by advertising, I want a salesperson. Right.
Interesting. So, elaborate on that for us.
All right. So a lot of good salespeople don't even know they're good at it, or they are even selling to begin with. Right. So I started to advertise. If I'm going to advertise for a job, I just call a customer service rep. Right. Because think about when you go into a lot of different businesses and you're dealing with people at Target, or like, just name a place, Home Depot, those people are working with you and they're selling you something in that store. Yeah. And it could even just be a smile that you're going to come back, or an experience that when you bought something, or the cashier just, looked in your eyes and talked to you and yada, 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 was like, just so helpful. Or even in your food and beverage industry, where, hey, would you like to try one of our appetizers? You would like fries with that, like they're upselling and cross-selling. So yeah, I mean, it's obvious, but I think when people see the word sales position, they freak out and they just pass it over.
Yeah. That's interesting. I like that.
Yeah. I'll let them know it's sales later.
Right.
Well,
it's always
the interview.
You want to hire good people, right? You hire the good person and then you teach them the skill that you need them to perform on. I think that's where you're alluding to, is like, if you can find a good customer service based person, and let's face it, whether you're selling insurance, you're selling advertising like Carroll Media does, like any of that, it really is a customer service business that just so happens to sell X, right? Whatever that may be. So exactly. I think that's a very good insight. If you guys are listening right now, write that down, that maybe your sales team doesn't need to be recruited to be salespeople. They could be customer service people that you help sell. Now, the only caveat, the only rub I would do there is, like, obviously, if you're looking for people to make, 100 cold calls a day, you want to be a little upfront about that. The customer service person's maybe not going to be that happy if they come in on that. Or what have you had any experience on that?
Well, here's the thing. I think you have to sell yourself and your agency and a vision for them in the interview. So why cut them out before they even get in the door, where you can sell your enthusiasm and your excitement for what's going on? I mean, think about where I am. I just fired everybody. I start having interviews and there's no employees in the office. It's just me. So yeah, welcome for the interview. You're probably wondering why there's nobody here. So let me tell you my story. And I literally told them exactly what I told you a few minutes back about, like, hey, this is where I am and this is what I was doing. And I'm basically, cleaning this whole thing out and starting over. And I'm looking for people that want to be part of a rebuilding of an amazing agency, right? That can take it from where we are to go somewhere else, that are going to come in here with, maybe you don't have any experience in the industry, but what you're going to get is you're going to get leadership and coaching. And I'm basically going to start from scratch and give you insurance, and State Farm 101 in a classroom setting in my office until you are rocking and rolling. So do you want to be a part of this or not? And if you think you might, all right, let's continue this conversation.
Very cool. So how'd you go from that? Like, were those people, did you hire those people into the remote position, or were those still in office people?
Yeah, this was all in office because it's pre-COVID. This is it's 20,
so let's fast forward
2018. It's like 2018. Yeah.
2018.
Fast forward.
So then let's fast forward. Where was the switch? Because like, obviously you got the team, you got the people in that obviously bought into you that, okay, I want to be in the rebuilding phase. You're building your team out. What was the thing where you're like, all right, we're going 100% remote? Let's fast forward to that point, because that's where I'm really interested to hear about.
Well, we had to kind of go. We kind of like went 100% remote the minute. I'm in Maryland, and the governor basically said, all right, everybody go home.
Yeah.
Then there was like, all right, they considered insurance agencies essential employees. But I also tapped into the emotions of my team, and they were like, we all were like, scared of this thing in the beginning without any knowledge of what was going on. So I felt the safest place for them to be was home. So even though we were essential, I sent them all home, and I stayed. I was the one who went in. I went in every day. So that I was able to be there at the office if anybody came in, and which not a lot of people did because of the situation. And then I think it was about June when things kind of like, we came back, and then for about a month, then it was kind of weird. It got spiked again, and then everyone freaks out again. And then I was like, all right, everybody go home. And that was like June of like 2019-ish, something like that. And that was it. That was like, all right, everyone's home. And then I started to see something. Production was going up and up and up and up.
While you guys were working from home, your production started increasing?
Absolutely. It was amazing.
Wow.
And I mean, like, amazing. Like, our numbers were, I was probably in the bottom. It's probably around the 50% of the agents in my area, if you will. I wasn't in the top 10 like I was early on. And then slowly something started to happen. I started seeing us go from like, 25th out of 50 to like, 14th, 15th, 10th, 6th, and then we're like in the top 10 agencies in our area, our territory.
Wow.
And I'm like, this is pretty awesome. Right?
We got to say, the numbers don't lie. It's what I love about numbers. It's like they tell it for what it is.
They definitely don't lie.
So this just was kind of one of the, I talk about this a lot too in all of my YouTube videos and on the podcast. It's like, if you're an entrepreneur, like, your job is to keep an eye on the ball. Like, you can appreciate that being with a baseball background, right? Like 9 times out of 10, if somebody swings and misses on a pitch, it's because they took their eye off the ball. Like, if you watch that ball all the way in and make contact, you're on base. And so for you were watching your numbers and you're like, okay, this thing is working. Let's talk a little bit about the team. I mean, obviously, if you felt them and they're like, hey, we're cool from working from home. Here's the one thing that, like, we're still in office here, but like, company culture, how did you hold that together? Did you guys get together to have team events? Was it Zoom calls every morning? What can you tell us a little bit about what you did to protect that company culture so that people didn't feel alienated or siloed?
Yeah, it's a great question. I get that a lot. Like, how can I trust my people to do what they're doing? I can't see them, et cetera, et cetera. Well, you got to take a little bit of a leap there for one. I think really that glue is what kind of leader are you as an agent? Like, because it really stems from that. Like, if you're not a leader that they want to follow when you're not around,
that's stinging on some people's ears right now, Mark. That's stinging on some people's ears.
You got to evaluate yourself first before you even maybe go down this road, because some people are like, they do what you want them to do because you're in the same room with them. right? But, when you're gone, who knows what they're doing, right? I mean, what are they doing when you're gone, when you're on vacation or you're out golfing or you're, got a family event or you decide you don't want to go to work that day? What's your team doing then? What's the difference if they're in, but you're remote and you're home, right? So for me, the culture that I had rebuilt at that point was one of just respect. I had to respect my team, right? So they were doing things for me, not because of there was like, hey, you need to do this and you need to do that. It was like, hey, if Mark's asking us to do something, we're doing it for him, just clearly out of respect for him, because he respects us, right? It was a two-way deal, right? I respected them. I take care of my team. I'm not one of those that's like, you have in the manual, you have X amount of sick days and stuff like that, but stuff comes up and I'm like, like I told them, I'll never say no, but I don't want you to take advantage of me. Like my old system, I was being taken advantage. So how do we do it? Well, we use what technology we had. We were group Skype. We were in a group Skype all day long. All day. Literally, if you are getting up from your desk to go take a quick, bathroom break, or you need to let the dog out, or you're getting up from your desk to walk around your house for 30 seconds, you're going to let us know that. Right.
See, because I've heard that. I've seen that a couple of times that because I've done a lot of research on this, and that's why I was excited to have you on the podcast to discuss this, because I've seen that a couple of times where it's like, everybody logs into a Zoom room or a group Skype, and it's like we're working remote, but we're still in the office together. And so that's cool that, anytime I look for patterns. So like if I see multiple people doing something and saying it works, you normally can put credit on that. So you guys had like this open Skype call where everyone was on it all day while you guys are working.
Well, yeah. We had an open Skype, and we would use it all day long. No different than if we were in the office, being chatty with each other. Yeah. I mean, and we didn't keep it necessarily like completely business related too. We would like just talk like we were in the office, of course, being appropriate. But oh my God, my dog just threw up. Oh no, what's wrong with your dog? Like, just like stuff like that, just to keep us in touch with each other's, lives.
Wow.
And that was really cool. That was super important for us.
Now, are you guys still doing it?
We still do it. Yeah. I mean, a lot of agents are like, how do you keep them accountable? Like, how do you keep your people accountable? Well, it's fairly simple. I mean, like you said, the numbers don't lie. Right. Numbers don't lie. And fortunately, our sales software has gotten so good that literally you can track everything. You can see the incoming phone calls, the outgoing phone calls, how many minutes they're spending on the phone, to the minute. And then you can look at, how many people are they talking to? How many calls do they get going? How many opportunities for sales do they have in their hopper? Like you can literally be like an air traffic controller and just oversight this thing like you're a drone. Like you can watch your entire thing from your screen.
Yeah.
Which is phenomenal.
Wow.
But it starts at the top. You got to be the right leader to switch over to this type of model.
Yeah. So then what about when they're working from home, if they need to be in a Zoom call, how can it be in the Zoom and the Skype at the same time? Or do they just bounce out and say, hey, I got a Zoom call, I got to hop in? Or do you guys not do that? How's that?
Yeah. Well, so we don't use Zoom at the farm. So we've got some really cool stuff. It's like all, of course, most of us in our industry, it's just regulation and oversight. Right. So the software we use for virtual appointments is pretty much through our software. So it could be tracked and everything could be in compliance.
Yeah.
But honestly, a lot we've offered virtual one-on-ones with clients. They're like cool with just talking to you over the phone.
Yeah.
It's available.
I think I sensed a lot of that too, is that everyone, again, I'd been doing Zoom calls or Cisco WebExes since 2016. So it wasn't anything new to me. That's how I do business all across the US. But it was 2020 hit and the whole world. I think there was two things that came out of the pandemic, right? Everyone knows how to do a video call now, and everyone knows what a QR code is. and it was
so true.
The QR codes and the Zoom calls. But now on the backside of it, people are can we just do a phone call? Beforehand it was like, you want to be in, oh, let's do the Zoom call and be face to face. Now it's like, can we just talk on the phone? So I totally get that. A lot of your clients are just like, hey man, just call me and we'll do business over the phone.
That's exactly right.
Let's face it, that's all we did.
Somebody.
That's all we did prior to 2015 or 2013, when everybody started video conferencing. I mean, there was business done for decades over the phone. So,
well, and it's generational. And here's something that's really important. I was reading an article in Forbes magazine a few days back, and they basically said that this is the pandemic has been the largest societal change since World War II.
I believe
right. That. Think of what our grandfathers and great grandparents were doing, depending how old you are, during the war. That all the men went over and fought, everybody else stayed home, was running everything, and then the war ended, and then society had completely changed by that point. It wasn't the same. So now we're in a situation where the norm is technology, and I'll even tell you about where I think we're going to be in the next 10 years, which could actually scared a lot of people when I said it in the meeting once. But, the generation that doesn't like remote are, my parents' age, that's 70 and older crowd, right? Even 65 and older, I'd say. They still want to bring in a check, and they still want to hand you something. They're afraid of technology. But they're eventually not going to be around anymore. And then you're going to be dealing with generations like ourselves that are mixed. We remember typewriters, but we're pretty good on iPhones now and mobile banking and whatever else. But eventually it's going to be a generation of people that have no idea how to even talk to someone in person.
Yeah, man.
So where are you going to be in the next 15 or 20 years?
I see it too. I mean, you're not off base there, Mark, because, I do a lot of speaking at high schools, and there's still the 3-4 kids you can tell that are just very charismatic and outspoken and don't know a stranger. But by and large, which is a Ray Dalio term, if you guys haven't read Principles, highly recommend that book. He always says he makes decisions by and large, right? So the group, by and large, they are less and less social because they spend the majority of their day on this thing right here. And it's the communication. And I agree with you, man. I think the ability to communicate is going to become less widely used, and it's going to then up your value. So if you're listening to this, if you're one of my younger listeners, because I got guys, Mark, I got kids that listen to this thing that are 16, 17, 18 years old that are starting their first lawn care business, and they'll write to me about things, and I try to tell them, if you're just now getting started in business, build that skill of being able to talk to people face to face or, over the phone, that verbal communication, because I'm with you, Mark. I think in another 10 or 15 years, our society is going to look completely different. My dad's 65 years old, and you've got to realize he went from having an outhouse to an iPhone in his lifetime. Right. So imagine what our life cycle is good. I had a cell phone when I was 13. I'm there to now, I can only imagine, I've talked a little bit on this podcast about metaverse and things, and I played around with a little VR stuff. I really think augmented reality will take the bait, because the challenge, just in the little bit of time that I've messed with my Oculus, when you go VR, you're completely immersive reality in there, and you're disconnected from the outside world. And so that can hurt relationships. I think that the next level of it is AR, where I can be here, but then I also can see stuff, that is in the online world. But there's no doubt, man, there's an online and offline world. I talk about it all the time.
Yeah.
I think you've done such a great job, man. So are the numbers still holding strong? You guys are still doing well?
Great. I mean, literally in the last 2 years, my income's gone up. This year is up 33% from the previous year, and it was up 40% the year before from that of previous year. So,
jeez, man, kudos to you.
Yeah, well, dude. Yeah. I mean, your employees are happy. Employees are happy. Right. So, most there's been certain, you can just Google and read articles about remote work and what are the employees saying? Most of them feel that they're productive or even more productive working from home, because who wants to leave an office at 3, 4, 5 o'clock in the afternoon, jump on a car, have to drive all the way back, then to try and get to a kid's soccer practice or whatever, and then or dinner or have other engagements. Why wouldn't it be great at 5 o'clock, you turn the computer off and you're literally in your house, you're ready to go.
Yeah.
That's where we're going to be. I mean, and it doesn't mean that your office has to be completely remote with all remote workers. You can do a hybrid, you can, here's the important part. This is really important. So, I just had my office was about 1,500 square feet. I had just done a nice remodel on it all by myself, my own labor, floors, paint, everything was beautiful. I mean, it literally looked like it was a recording studio, not an insurance agent. It was great. And then nobody was coming into it. So I'd make this decision. I'm paying $3,500 a month for rent and nobody's coming in. And every time I had to write that rent check out, I just wanted to get sick, right? It was just sickening. So through the power of prayer and some other things and reaching out to my landlord, and my landlord was making some moves of his own on that particular property, came out where I was able to get out of my lease. So I moved into a pod shared kind of building where they rent out by a secured off. I have a secured office, everything's fine. It meets all the requirements that you would need to have your agency in. And I went from $3,500 a month in rent to $600 a month in rent.
Yeah.
I mean, it's like $35,000 a year in savings.
Yeah. Is that one of those not necessarily, I don't know if you would call it co-working space, but then if you need a conference room, they'll rent it by the hour and things like that.
I pay for one private office. I got my nice desk in there. That's one thing I salvaged with the move. I can go into my thoughts on how to train. And people are going to ask, how do you train new people? I've got a ton of ideas on that, and maybe we have a follow up on that.
Yeah, man.
This is good stuff, but I have a conference room where I can put 15 people around like a big executive board, or I have a small one where I can have 4 people around a round table. I've got a nice reception area, and then the place I got's awesome. You open up the back slider, and they have a putting green on the roof. I mean,
okay, I'm
sold. Awesome.
I'm sold, man. No, Mark, that was cool, man. I know we got to be wrapping up. I know you're a busy guy. I appreciate you spending time with me and my audience here in the Sales Factory. I think this really kind of gives me a good insight on somebody else that's kind of done this, even though I'm not an insurance agent. I think if you're listening to this right now, or you're watching on YouTube or Facebook, one of the other platforms, Mark has given you guys a lot of actionable things to think about. The numbers don't lie is the big one, right? You can track it to see if it works. The other thing is that he didn't abandon company culture. Where I think this really doesn't work are when the companies are like, okay, everybody's going remote. You move 1,500 people out of a single office and that was in a call center environment, and now they're all just at home and they don't talk to anybody. They don't see anybody because my brother is a single guy, younger, and he's a mortgage banker. And with COVID, they shut down. Right, he had to go home. Well, now the guy's in complete isolation with his dog for 9 hours a day, every single day, and they don't do group calls. They don't do anything. It's just emails, and that's it. And so I think there's definitely, you have to balance. There's a balancing act here. You can't sacrifice company culture, but I think if you do it right, like Mark, I think you've done, obviously the proof's in the pudding, up double digits back-to-back years, man. That's nothing to shake a stick at. If people want to follow up with you, Mark, and learn a little bit more about this or reach out to you, how can they find you? Are you online on social platforms?
Yeah. They can always reach me through. They can send me a Facebook message. It's just under Marc Carella, or they can reach out to me on an email. It's marc@marccarella.com.
Cool.
Or through our, the business Facebook page. They could shoot me a note there. I'd be more than happy to respond.
Very cool, man. Well, Marc Carella, ladies and gentlemen. Mark, thanks for coming to the Sales Factory, man. We appreciate you having me on. We'll definitely have to do a follow-up on this because the training, I think, would be a good session just in itself.
Absolutely.
So thanks so much for coming on, man. I really appreciate having you.
Coach, appreciate being here.
Hey, if you enjoyed this podcast, make sure you give it a thumbs up, like it, share it. You know the drill. Make sure you're subscribed. And if you could write us a review on the big platforms, Apple, iTunes, the Google Play Store, places like that. If you can leave us a review, it helps us get in front of more people so we can help more people. As always, here's to your success. Hustle, it's worth it.